The Prime Minister has put any speculation about prorogation to bed. There had been some talk that if the Liberals win the upcoming by-elections, the government could suspend Parliament to reset committees and more easily push through legislation. But Mark Carney is saying that is not going to happen through prorogation.
Absolutely not. It has never even entered my thinking, the possibility of that. So I couldn't have been more surprised to see a suggestion that that was under consideration. The House Leader would personally, well, he wouldn't be happy with me. I don't want to suggest that he would do anything more extreme. We are absolutely focused on working with Parliament, getting legislation through Parliament, adjusting legislation where it needs to be, where it's better informed by the discussions in Parliament, where we have to make compromises in order to do it.
We should say some of the suggestion that this might happen coming from reporting in the Globe and Mail. But as you can hear, the Prime Minister shot it down. Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre earlier today was asked about that possibility of the government proroguing. Take a listen.
I think it's time for the Carney Liberals to get to work. You know, they've been in power for 11 years, including a year with Mr. Carney there. And what have they done? It's time for him to stop the illusions and start getting the results that he promised in people's everyday lives.
So the upcoming by-elections could push the government over the edge of a majority. And with no plans to prorogue, what could business in the House look like if that happens? Let's put it to the power panel. And I am going to start with you, Lisa. I got to ask you, though, like, the political bubble goes crazy over this idea that the government could prorogue. I know we have, in a way, set up a whole segment about this. Like, who cares, Lisa? Why is this such a big deal?
Well, it's a big deal because the way it sits right now on these committees, you actually have more opposition members than you have government members.
Yes.
By virtue of the way. And it oftentimes means that the Bloc Québécois actually holds the balance of power if the Liberals and the Conservatives disagree on an issue. But, I mean, the reality is that you already just heard from Pierre Poilievre. They're not in any rush to go to an election right now. They're going to be cooperative, I think, on an issue-by-issue, tranche-by-tranche basis. So he doesn't need to prorogue. And if I recall correctly, when you prorogue, everything that's on the order paper dies, and you kind of have to start over again with all of these laws and all of these acts that you work so hard to get to where they are right now. I don't know if I would even take a chance on that one and have that opportunity. I don't think that the allure of switching up a few people on a committee is such that it demands losing I would say, the ground that they've already gained in the past year, if they've gained any ground.
And I should be clear about this. I do understand why it's important and I do want us to talk more about this, why it's important that the government have a majority where they can pass more legislation. That I get, but prorogue versus a motion, like Supriya, we get ourselves tied up in knots about this. Do you think things would look meaningfully different if on the other side of these by-elections, Mark Carney has a true majority, not just 172, but perhaps 173. He's got the motion. We've reset the committees. Like, are a lot more laws likely to get passed?
I mean, probably, right? Like, I think that the main thing that a Carney majority government does is that it kind of gives both the Conservatives and the NDP a little bit of breathing room, right? Like it gives them time to be able to work, to figure out what works for them in terms of getting some of that Teflon off of the Carney government, as Nathan said, and especially for the NDP, it gives them time to build the party back up from the grassroots. In terms of like the shift, in terms of how the Liberals would operate, I mean, they've effectively been operating as though they have a majority since the election, right? Like, aside from the committee makeup, which I certainly agree with Lisa that the Bloc often holds the balance of power. But, I mean, if you just look at the way that they've gone about certain bills, I mean, parts of Bill C-2 had to be reintroduced as Bill C-22, the Lawful Access Act. And, you know, there have been improvements made. So I want to give the government some credit there. But Part 2 of the bill essentially creates a surveillance state because it allows the public safety minister to demand any messaging app, any email provider, any social media platform, any cloud service to basically backdoor engineer access for law enforcement directly into their own infrastructure. While Canadian users are kept in the dark, companies that receive the request can't tell their users, and there's not really any judicial oversight. Now,
Well, Sabrina,
normally,
do you worry if that check, just like part of the reason that they had to break it into pieces was the pressure from opposition parties. So if they're a majority, they lose that check. Do you worry about that?
Yeah, I mean, I do, but I would say that the flip is that, of course, they kind of, receded and then reintroduced some of the more troubling aspects of the bill. And we haven't seen a ton of like vociferous criticism in terms of, particularly the Conservatives making a lot of noise about this. And that to me is kind of weird. This is the kind of thing that Conservatives should want to oppose, right? So I think the government will certainly appreciate having that extra cushion with a few more seats and being able to go about as though they have a majority. But I would say that everything that we've seen thus far has been kind of majority territory.
Nathan Cullen, so again, a new leader in Avi Lewis that could very much coincide more or less with these by-elections and the possibility of a majority government. What should Avi Lewis be doing with that time, trying to manage this potential situation?
Well, it's the task he's been given by the party, which is to rebuild, reconnect, reach those New Democrat voters that are slowly coming back in the polling, but offer them something, and something that's very different than what they're seeing from the Carney government right now, particularly, I think, on the environment and climate, on affordability. I think there's lots of space certainly to the center left. But I agree with Supriya. This very much reminds me of the Harper minority government when Stéphane Dion was leader. He was so terrified of going to an election. Harper acted and operated like he had a majority government because he effectively did. There wasn't anything major that was ever challenged or pushed back or lost. It was, and what I see in Parliament right now between the two main parties, Liberals and Conservatives, is a lot of violent agreement. There's a lot of yelling. There's a lot of question period theatrics, but bills are passing through, some of them completely unamended. And it's the fear, either agreement that Mr. Poilievre and Mr. Carney agree on a lot of things, which seems to be true. Mr. Carney borrowed a lot of things from Mr. Poilievre for his agenda. But it's also the fear of the election that Mr. Poilievre absolutely does not want. We like saying prorogation because it's just such a beautiful word. It just rolls off the tongue. It excites Canadians. They rush to their doors to wonder when and how and what's it going to mean. But it is a bubble story. It's not going to happen, obviously, with the Prime Minister's declaration. And I don't see why he would. And 1 or 2 seats, one way or the other, I don't think it matters. I think he's effectively got the majority that people keep talking about because he's getting everything he wants done in a relatively timely manner.
Shachi, are the public opinion polls suggesting overwhelming support for prorogation then? Is that the... Do people...
But can we spell it backwards?
Oh,
that's the important
goodness gracious.
question.
I was told there would not be a quiz portion.
Question, Catherine. So yes, it obviously it provides a little bit of cushion. We've talked about that, which if you're in government, regardless of the stripe of government, it takes the stress away from those big votes. Will they, won't they, can they, can't they? And I'm going to be so relieved that not every single budget vote and confidence vote will go to one of these massive speculation, are we brink of an election panels, because those are a bit tedious. So as to whether
the prorogation panels are way better, Shachi.
Aren't they? They're I look forward to those. I put on the good lipstick for those. The mood in terms of wanting an election is interesting because the way Carney will get this majority, even a teeny tiny little majority, is one that a lot of Canadians take issue and umbrage with. The fact that it was achieved mostly through, and let's presume that those by-election results are not going to be disastrous. I think we can probably bank that, but should we see the results that we expect to see with those by-elections, the fact is that this majority will have been obtained through floor crossings. That is something that Conservatives in particular, who are still licking their wounds over most of those floor crossings, although one of them obviously a New Democrat MP, people who didn't vote Liberal don't think that's really cool. They don't think it's particularly fair, but, tant pis. It is what it is. And to that point, when we ask the question, is it time for an election? I think the most notable piece of data that comes out of that is nearly half of Conservative voters themselves are saying, no, we don't want an election, just get on with the work of getting things done. So when you hear Pierre Poilievre saying, yes, we expect the Prime Minister to be in the House doing the job, doing the work, that is something that he can bank on at least half of his base backing him up on, which he'll take that. And that gives him, and to Nathan's point, the NDP time to do a little bit of regrouping, recollecting, figuring out who they want to be, not just in the next 3 months, but maybe over the next year or two. But also, I was in Ottawa last week at a dinner party. Everyone wanted to, when's the next election? Oh, for the love of goodness. Canadians don't want an election right now. They are not clamoring for one.
Lisa, we have heard from Pierre Poilievre, the floor crossing is this is dirty backroom deal. So let's say if Mark Carney were to obtain a majority government, because we know 2 of the 3 ridings, Liberal strongholds, Terrebonne, yes, it arguably came down to 1 vote in the last election, but I think there's a sense that things have gotten better for the Carney government. Perhaps they have a shot there. We shall see. Do you expect a lot of protest from the Conservatives if indeed there is a Liberal majority, that this happened the wrong way? Or at the end of the day, are the Conservatives just glad that they got a little bit more time to sort of their strategy and kind of stress test some of Mr. Carney's promises?
Well, 2 things can be true at the same time.
Fair.
And I think that they can and they will make noises about whether or not this is an electorally won majority as opposed to a negotiated majority. On the other hand, I think they are content right now to get their own house in order and get ready for the next election. That's what my sense is. And I think that's actually pretty much what the leader has said as he does his charm offensive, going to all kinds of different places and delivering his message to new audiences that he hasn't been to before.
Supriya, would Mark Carney have to justify a majority government to Canadians, given the floor crossings?
I don't think.
Is there any sort of explanation or no?
I certainly take the point made that for Canadians that didn't vote for a Liberal representative, they may feel as though they got the short end of the stick. But I think ultimately, I don't know that you're going to have a plurality or even a majority of Canadians that are coming out to say that somehow it's a illegitimate majority, or that he, pulled a fast one on Canadians and hoodwinked us into a majority somehow. Right. I mean, at the end of the day, this is our system. Carney got a few floor crossers. But I don't to reiterate what Shachi said. I mean, tant pis, that's the way it works. And you can sit there and lick your wounds and you can complain about it, or you could, do the work and keep your head down until the next election and figure out how you don't, have a bunch of MPs who are secretly sort of seething over your leadership and management style and want to cross over the second that they see that the grass on the other side is somewhat greener.